And that's what J.T. Evans and other people did not do. They did not introduce themselves. They didn't come up with a character. They didn't say, this is who in the fuck I am. And that's what me and you did. That's why we got to where we did. Because we came on here, and you said 10 years ago that you had the balls to come on here and say, I'm 35 years old. My name is Wacko Bob. I'm 35 years old, and I live with my mom. I had the balls to say that I'm Jonathan Clarke, and I got no connections with nobody, but in 15 years, I'm going to do it.
Oh, yeah, I mean...
It might take me a decade and a half, but I'm going to do it. I live with my mom in a basement, and I'm going to do it. And I did it.
Yeah, I mean... You know, something very, very Adam Sandler-ish about that when you think about Wedding Singer and stuff. But, you know, I mean, you know, the big thing is, I mean, you know, the big picture is, you know, to do this, you got to be a big picture person to do this.
You got to be really fucked up to do what we do. And if you're not fucked up, you're not going to do it.
Yeah, and you've seen, and anyone who's seen Wedding Singer, anyone who's seen that movie, you know, knows how something had to change for Adam Sandler. Although the movie, I'm saying you're beyond all that material stuff. It's like I can't keep living off meatballs, making $60 a pop whenever there's something going on weekends. At $60 a pop, living in my sister's basement, type of thing. You know, but Adam Sandler was
Ariana Grande meatball. Unless it's a meatball made by Ariana Grande, you make an exception because Ariana Grande makes the best meatballs ever, and I'm going to hold her to that because I believe it. But Bob, what you're saying is true.
You know, I mean, unfortunately, Adam Sandler, you know, you're saying you should be grateful for all that, but come on, you know, there is a reality that goes on. That goes on. That you got to be a big. If you're going to have success, you got to see the big picture. But you got to see the big picture for where you're at and where you want to be. And the only thing you could do currently on radio is deal with what you're at and work to where you want to be. You know, and keep working to that because that's how the big picture works. You got to start off somewhere. You're not going to start off at the top.
No, you're not. You're not. I came on radio in first I had an E-Fed, like we were just talking about. I had no radio show in 1999. All I had was a fucking website. I had no radio show. By about 2004, 2005, I had a radio show, but I had a website that I was always updating constantly. That's how I started. I started with a website, and then I expanded from an E-Fed into a news website, and I expanded that. Once I was able to get enough connections from the years that I had spent in wrestling, then I launched a website. Bob's swearing on something because he can't get it to work.
Yeah, he said, yeah, it's like, what the hell is this shit? That was me.
E-Fed.
And I know E-Fed's, yeah. Yeah, man, you know, actually, the last E-Fed I remember dealing with was back in 2000, was back in 2005, 2006. So, I mean, that's the last time I remember dealing with E-Fed. And at that point, E-Feds were relegated to hotlines on the telephone. And I was helping this one kid out on the West Coast, of the country, and you know, who was coming up with some of these names he would come up with, and I said, I'm like, everything just sounds so much the same like you see now, and I went and I put my imagination together and put something together for a female wrestler because he insisted on having this person named Lin Lee, who was a Japanese wrestler, and he had another one that was an American woman wrestler, and everything was just so hardcore based for them, the Japanese hardcore style meeting the American hardcore style, and he was trying to do that, and sometimes he would mix in. The kid had a gift for mixing in wrestlers, the actual pro wrestlers with made-up wrestlers, and I just put my imagination together and came up with someone who I had actually known. Her name was Tammy. And she was actually someone who, beautiful woman, I should say.
A lot of people ask me.
And she was training in MMA fighting. She was big time in martial arts. Go ahead.
A lot of people ask me, how did you come up with the name of your show? The name of my show, HEW Entertainment, is the name of my EFED. That's how I came up with the name of the show. I was the longest running EFED probably in the history of EFEDs, and I came up with that. That was the name of my EFED. HEW Entertainment was the name of my EFED, and then I just kept it. Very rarely, I was just one of those one-hit wonders, and this is as blunt as I can be with you. Ladies and gentlemen, I had nothing in 1999. When I started this shit, I had nothing. In 1996, I was a wrestling fan who lived in his mom's basement, like you see in the movies, who wanted to have something to do with wrestling. I had no connections whatsoever. I came up with an EFED. I made an EFED. I was one of those one-hit wonders who actually got somewhere with the fucking EFED and expanded. If you're going to make it in wrestling, you got to expand. Because if you don't expand, if you do not broaden your horizons in wrestling, and you think that you're not going to make it, you think you're going to make it, but you know you can't, you're never going to get nowhere. But if you take it one day as it comes, you will get somewhere. I had nothing in 1999. I had no connections. I had no supposed list that 90% of the radio shows out there got from me. There's probably 15% of you out there who didn't. That girl, Renee Young, who's on WWE, do you think that she's actually there because she made it because she wanted to be there? She didn't get there because she wanted to be there. She got there because she got Lex Luger's number and Paul Bearer's number and Roddy Piper's number and the number to Vince McMahon's WWE headquarters from me, because she's a Canadian from Toronto, and she mentioned my name from a column that I had written about the Divas division, Kelly, because we were in a dispute about Kelly. That's how she got there, because she squanted her name in through the door. You don't think that you get there because you can get there because you can. You got to work at it.
Exactly. I mean, I tell people this all the time. In the end, I said the way I got into radio, the dark match originally was I was not the original owner of the dark match. The original owner was Rick Bizzle, and James Young was supposed to buy it out from him once he finally got it, and he worked something out with him. Unfortunately for him, James Young couldn't buy it out by sweet talking it. He owed him so much money. I wound up buying out the dark match name after being hosting a segment and filling in for James Young a couple of times. And really, I finally had to say after a while that after me and James Young had our little business plan not work out, when we were supposed to start doing shows and everything, and originally we were going to start a network on, at the time, on Live 365, we basically moved over. We basically went back to Bizzle, and we were going to do what was going to be known as the Wrestling Rage Report. Then James Young, after I paid off everything, and so we could start doing it, bowed out on me the next day, and I was frustrated at this point because I was throwing money into things, and I said, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to do this properly. And I said, the only logical thing I could do is buy the dark match. But in the end, the story is, I didn't choose radio. Radio chose me. I mean, a lot of people don't know that.
The same way it chose me, and I understand what you're saying, Bob. The way it is, Bob, is like this. To make it in wrestling, you're not going to make it overnight. To make it in wrestling, when your mom dies, this is what you do. To make it in wrestling, when your mom dies, the same night that she's in the funeral home, you go to a wrestling show. and you choose wrestling over your own family. When your father shoots himself, you go to a wrestling show 5 days after, and you get a picture taken to be in a magazine for the Herald, for a magazine publication that originates from here, that I was in with Bushwhacker Luke, that's got photos of it on your Facebook page. That's what you do to make it in the wrestling business. And you got to make sacrifices, and you got to miss out on a lot of everyday things that you will never get back. The time that you invest into wrestling, you will never get back. And in the end, your life will be fucked up. So one question that you got to ask yourself is, do you really want to be involved with it? Or do you just want to be a fan who sits home and watches it?
Yeah.
That's the question that you got to ask yourself. And that's the best way of summing it up. Do you want this? Do you really want your life to be fucked up at 28 years old like it is with me? Because it is really fucked up because of what I did. Do you want to be, how old are you now, Bob?
I'm 40, so that shows you where I'm
you
at.
You want to be 40 years old, still at home, living with your mom. Is that what you really want? Because wrestling is a circle that you just, at the end of the day, I could interview John Cena, and I've interviewed a lot of big names. At the end of the day, I could interview John Cena, or I could interview Sting. But an interview with Sting is not going to get me no farther than what I got where I am now. Living out with a bunch of people, with a 5-year-old nephew, with no parents in the world, that's what wrestling got me. Wrestling got me, and along with a lot of decisions my mom and dad made, and my personal life, along with my personal life going the wrong way in ways that I didn't want it to turn out. This is the most honest show, by the way, that you'll ever find out of the 1,000 that I've done, and this is why Bob will have a lot of ratings on Monday. Wrestling got me. I started with everything in the way of a family. And I said this to Kristen the other day. I said, you know, my dad is gone, and wrestling took so much time with my dad away from me, and it took a lot of time away from my own family. And I feel like crying now because I'm talking about so much personal stuff, but the point is, it got me to a point where I'm in the world with nobody, okay? That's what wrestling got me. Don't do that to yourself and get away from it.